everybody, this is Joseph Vogley of Stokely Films. I'm the co-writer, the director, and the creator of the new slasher sensation Specimen 6, which will be out on digital and DVD here in just the next couple of weeks. And we are joined today on this very amazing, this very spectacular, this very incredible podcast. What podcast is this today, Mariana Chipoletta?
This is the podcast No Country for Joe and Mariana, and we're doing another nude episode.
Nude, because
sex scenes.
Mariana Chipoletta, please, again, we have a very special, wonderful guest. Please introduce our very special, wonderful guest who's been on the show before, please, now.
This is Siubhan. She's joining us for our nude episode. She's got lots of personality.
I love her personality. Her personality is all over the place. And it's wonderful, and they're both very big personalities and all that good stuff. Anyhow, so yes, today we were talking more about sex scenes and our favorite sex scenes, and because we love nudity and we love to see people bumping uglies in the horror movie world and in the movie world in general, and we love to just in general talk about sex. So we are going
sex positive.
And we're going to be breaking down our top 3 favorite sex scenes. Well, kind of like we've done our favorite kind of sex scenes, and now we're just doing more sex scenes because I really don't have a top 3 because I just love sex scenes. But we're going to talk more about our sex scenes while we're in the nude, because you can't talk about love making when you're fully clothed, because people that make love, well, I suppose you could if you like just unzipped your pants a little, and then
you've got like Mormon underwear out there.
Yeah,
they got the Amish have their own thing. I'm sure. Yeah. It's like through a sheet. I don't know.
So I'm going to hand the reins over to our guest for the number 3 on her choice, and then we're gonna move on to Mariana and then myself. So lay it on us.
All right, so the sex scenes that I picked was from the movie Species. Not sure if anybody remembers this. This movie came out in 1995, as a while ago. Just kind of showing my age, whatever, don't care. And in this movie, quick synopsis on the movie is that basically the SETI program gets back a message on how to splice alien DNA with our own. And the government, of course, decides this is going to be a great plan. And to make a more viable subject, they decide to go with a female. And she gets loose. And her number one prerogative is to go out and populate. So the movie covers her aging up from a child into a woman and then going on the hunt. She has one almost sex scene in this movie where it ends with her ripping out the spine of the gentleman in question. And the next sex scene actually being a full, complete sex scene. It's one of those ones where it's a good one. Is one of those ones where they decided they were going to try to be pseudo funny, classy about it, where they were like, oh yes, leg and just a touch of breast, and oh let's catch buttocks here. It was, the way that it was filmed was great. It was honestly probably one of the sex scenes to mark my childhood in coming of age. But yes, the lovely Syl is actually played by Natasha Henstridge. Yes.
Yep. One of the smartest women of all time.
Oh, she's beautiful. She's gorgeous, and that was one of the moments that I picked, and that was the one that did it for me. So thoughts, guys. What do you think?
I'll tell you about my experience with Species. I remember I saw it first when it came out on VHS, and there's this part where Natasha Henstridge, she's naked throughout like majority of the film. Oh, yeah. And it's amazing, especially when it was 95. I was about 13 years old, and I remember that scene where she's running out in the lawn and she's completely butt naked. Well, I remember by the time that we had, back in those days, you could rent a movie for 5 days in a row, and so you just watch that over and over and over because we didn't have anything else to watch. But of course, why would you want to watch anything else when Natasha Henstridge was naked in the film? Mm-hmm. By the end of that week, I can tell you that scene alone after rewinding it so much at that one spot, it started to get a little spotty on the VHS, so it started getting kind of grainy. You know, you can definitely tell that we had watched it quite a bit in that 5 days. And so I think I've burned through at least 3 VHSs alone of that film, and now I have it on DVD.
Did you burn through like 19 socks too?
Oh yeah.
19. Let's go for a full 20.
Yeah, they're as hard as cardboard. Yeah.
Try to be realistic.
Yeah, I stuck them underneath the bed though, so you can't let your mom see those sopping wet socks.
Yeah, just prop up the edge of the bed with them.
This chair is kind of wobbly.
What did you think about that film, Mariana?
So I actually never have seen it, but I have a question.
Yeah.
I have a question. You said that you get to see her grow up from a small child. Is it normal, like
no
human, or like
no? She
accelerated?
actually grows these little. She actually eats it's almost like a bug. She eats an entire like cart full of food, and then promptly gets like tethered to the wall with these tentacles that sprout from her skin, and then she flops into the world fully grown.
It's quite the
Okay.
Yeah, she literally goes from like, she skips over all the weird teenage awkwardness.
Okay, that was my
acne
question. I was like, if it was accelerated growth,
yeah.
does she like, but does it like continue to happen, or does she remain a certain age for the remainder of the movie?
She remains a certain age, but she doesn't last very long. Spoilers, if you haven't seen it by now, get your shit together.
Hey,
spoilers, she doesn't make it very long because they are on the hunt. While she is hunting for partners, they are hunting for her because she is in fact a multi-million-dollar program thing, and they
$6 million sex robot.
Sort of, kind of sex alien, but yeah, sort of, kind of. And when the thing is that she goes through some crazy transformations in this movie. Like, it goes from baby, child, preteen, adult, weird pseudo amphibian thing with tentacle nipples. I'm not exaggerating.
You know me, I love anything tentacle, so I mean.
I'm not exaggerating. It was a great movie. Now it's not doing so great with Rotten Tomatoes, but that's because everybody's expecting it to be like this, 2020 release, which it is not and will never be, but it is amazing movie. It was actually great when it came out. It was very, very interesting.
I remember part 2 is like so. It's all right. Part 3 is nearly unwatchable. But
yeah,
right?
no,
it's like so poorly made. There's scenes that are so poorly lit that you can't even see what's going on top of all the other things. Well, part 1 is amazing.
Part 1 is amazing. It was actually it would have, as far as I'm concerned, it's a standalone movie. I pretend that the second and third didn't happen. But I will say the part 3, I actually did watch it, just morbid curiosity. I watched it, and it reminds me a lot. There was a movie maker, and I cannot remember his name for the life of me, but he did everything in one cut, and so it didn't matter what bloopers happened. If it happened, stays in the movie. And that movie reminded me a lot of that. Like, stuff would happen and they would just ignore it. Like, that just did not happen. Like, you'd be like, I just saw it. Nope. No, you didn't.
What you thought you saw.
It was great. But it was a really good movie for the time. And I honestly think it aged pretty well. Like, I will say the graphics, everybody wants these big snazzy graphics, but considering that most of the stuff that was done on it was done with like makeup and practical, that is like huge considering the undertaking of the storyline and what actually happened. It was pretty insane.
All right, well, I think that's pretty good for species. Let's move on to Mariana. What do you think is your number 3 right now for sex scene? Because let's talk about that.
So my number 3 doesn't actually come from a movie, but it does come from horror. It's American Horror Story.
Oh, okay.
Because I recently, I mean, I'm not really going in any kind of order. I'm just kind of browsing through the episodes because I know that they're like sort of connected, but not kind of. Anyway, I'm just kind of browsing through episodes and like whatever catches my eye, you know. But I came across this one, the first episode of the 5th season, Hotel.
I love that.
And this season takes place in a hotel down in LA. And it's kind of like some disturbing stuff is happening, and this homicide detective is investigating these occurrences that are happening, murder, obviously. And I won't give too many details about like who comes into this hotel at the beginning, but I will say that Lady Gaga plays the Countess. I can't remember the guy's name, but he plays her boyfriend, I guess. And they're essentially vampires, like really fancy vampires. And this sex scene in the show, it was like the most elegant, like it was elegant and macabre at the same time. So you have Lady Gaga and her friend who are entangled. They're like beautifully dressed, and they've invited this couple to come and have like an orgy kind of thing in their room. And they're usually the ones in control. You can tell throughout the entire scene that they're the ones in control, and it's wonderful and gorgeous. And you have these like all this like skin on skin, lovely, like touching, but like very sensual, still very classy. And then all of a sudden, blood everywhere. I won't say how, I won't say why, but I will say it's just like I really love it when sex scenes have that like shock element to them. In the case of a lot of horror movies, it's usually someone getting slaughtered, and the blood really, and you know, with the very pale skin of Lady Gaga, and the girl and the couple is like very, very, they're all very fair skinned. So you have then also the white sheets, and then you have this splash of red, and it's beautiful.
That, you know, a little bit of trivia. I really enjoyed that season with Lady Gaga. That scene in particular, because that really showed like how amazing her butt is. And I was like blown away. I was like, whoa.
It is a nice butt. Like, I'm not gonna lie. I was also a little taken aback when I saw it.
Later on in that season, it was near the end. There's this part where Lady Gaga is coming into the front, like part of the hotel, and she's wearing this amazing dress that shows her like a lot of her boobs and stuff like that. And just for a split second, there's a wardrobe malfunction. And I don't know why this wasn't all over the internet, but I remember watching it for the first time. I was like, pause it right now. Because I saw Lady Gaga's nipple, and it slips out there just like that, right? But it's just for like this second, and then as soon as it cuts back, it's covered up again. I was like, but the beautiful thing about being able to like record cable nowadays is
so you can go back and pinpoint that 1 nanosecond.
Just playing that over
like
and
the
over
pervert
again.
you are.
Yeah, like, oh yeah, I'm a bighorn dog. I'm out there about that. But and then and so I was like, yes, look at that. Oh my God, that was amazing. And she has amazing boobies. So just saying. But I remember when I was a kid, we didn't have that luxury watching TV shows. For instance, my favorite TV show of all time, as many people know, is Xena Warrior Princess. And I love Lucy Lawless and Renee O'Connor and as Xena and Gabrielle. And there's this amazing scene where they're in a hot tub together, right? And they're washing each other's backs, and they're doing. And of course, I was a teenager at the time, and it was every Thursday night, and I was like, oh my God, they're in a hot tub, they're in a bath, and they're washing each other. And then this moment where they switch spots in there, and there is a moment where Lucy Lawless stands up just for a second. You get to see her boobs, and And the great thing about that was I recorded every single episode on VHS because I would rewatch them. But not everybody had that luxury. But I remember it didn't happen that often back in the day, but nowadays it happens a little bit more. So anyway, that's my story. Boobs.
Nip slips. He gets them where he can.
Slips.
Nip slips. You know, I'm a big fan of the nip slip and the tasteful side boob. Yeah.
Tasteful
Yes.
side boob.
I can sometimes agree with the under boob, but not very often.
I
like under boob. I like any angle of the boob, to be honest.
Well,
I have
we
to
just
agree with Mariana. There's very frequently the under boob is just it's not shot well, and then you'll see it and you're like, oh dear.
I think the under boob is really great for girls who are like in the B cup area, B almost C.
Thick. I'm gonna have to say anywhere from like the heavy A up to the small C.
Yeah.
That nice little area. The
Yeah, like
under
little
boob
apples. Little
yeah,
apples could do it.
just little booblets.
Little booblets.
Booblets. I say that because if you took one of mine and split it in two, it might be that. So but yeah, no, gals with the booblet can do the under boob. I'm not tasteful side boob, you can get it from almost any size, but under boob it has to be a booblet.
Very specific.
Very
Specific taste. What about you, Joe? What's your number 3?
Okay, my number 3. So this gets a little weird, and it's not because it like gets me all horned up or anything, as usually sex scenes do. But I really enjoy this sex scene because of how weird it is. I'm a big fan of the Wrong Turn films. Not so much with part 1. I like part 1. I like Elijah Dushku in it, but I'm more of a fan of all the sequels because they kept ratcheting up the craziness with all the mutant hillbillies and all the murder and the blood and everything like that. And in part 2 is probably my favorite. It has Henry Rollins is in it, and it's just a really great story. There's this part where one of the like mutant hillbillies has like so the camper, like these hikers are going through the woods and they see 2 people like having sex, right? And then one of them, like they turn around, we see it. Okay, I'm not explaining this well because I'm just thinking about the weird sex. And so anyway, one of the mutant hillbilly brothers is having sex with his mutant hillbilly sister, right? And they're like up against a log and they're rocking like that. And the sister has actually cut off the face of one of their victims and is wearing it while they're like going at it. And so it's extra messed up. So when they turn around, that person sees that it's their friend's face on that person. And so like the mutant hillbilly brother was like getting all extra horny because his sister was wearing the face of this gal and everything. So there you go.
Gross.
Foul. I'll dig it. I dig it. Absolute
That's
foul.
pretty fucking. I've never seen it. I've never seen the Wrong Turn movies, but I
awesome.
know they're on the list.
I'm not gonna lie. Wrong Turn. I actually watched the first one, and I liked it, but I wasn't as impressed as I was hoping to be because like I wanted to be scared. And a lot of that movie is a lot of tension, like they build a lot of tension, but not a lot of payoff. And I'm not necessarily like, don't get me wrong, I like a good splatter scene as much as the next person, but I don't like getting too desensitized to it. An example, like I watched the Saw movies, and a lot of them for me was like it was just splatter scene after splatter scene after splatter scene after splatter scene, and so you get to this point where you're like, oh cool, they're dying again, whatever, I don't give a shit.
It stops being clever.
It stops being clever and just
is it like within the movie, or I know there's like 4 movies, right? Is it like
with the Saw movies? Well, the issue that I had is like the first movie, they were good at like giving you the nasty, oh it's horrifying, and then they kind of got to this point where they were doing it so much in a single movie, trying to be shocking within the single movie, that you stop being shocked. So you're just like, oh okay, that's cool, not shocked anymore though. Like they gave you too much to know where to go.
Right.
Whereas with the Wrong Turn movies was the absolute opposite. They gave you like all this sense of like foreboding, and the first one anyways, foreboding all this horrible stuff that's about to happen, could happen, should happen, and then it doesn't. Or it does, but it happens kind of off camera. So then you're like,
It's like anticlimactic.
it really is, because you're like expecting like this big, bloody, god-awful payoff, and it doesn't happen. And you're like, wait a minute, hold on. 1 second. Where's my bloody payoff? So no, I have to admit I haven't seen past the first one just because of the how disappointed I was with the
I don't
first.
at all. I was actually hesitant at first because I didn't care for the first one. I was like, yeah, it's a horror movie. It was spoon-fed. There you go. But then I did end up watching part 2 when I worked over at this Blockbuster, and I was like, ah, hell, let's try it out. And it's batshit crazy. There's good nudity, there's good blood, it delivers, and then all of the sequels. It was the best of the sequels, but all of the other sequels ended up like really delivering at the same time. So yeah, that's
I'll have to check that out.
All the sequels are much better than the first one.
See, I'll have to check that out because, like I said, the first one kind of left me cold. Again, it was one of those things where it kept promising, like I'm not gonna lie, almost the entire movie you're expecting this great big nasty blood scene, and it just doesn't happen. Like you get a little bit, like they give you a little something, but it feels, again, like you said, spoon-fed, very. Here you go. That's
a little light too. So
yeah, it was. I was expecting that hallway of blood from The Shining, and I got like splatter. It was one of those moments where you're just like, oh, come on, man.
But part 2, that sex scene, it's amazing. All right, so let's move on to our second. Tashina, what? Tell us.
Okay.
Number 2, please.
So for number 2 for me was Alien Covenant. They actually have a sex scene in it, and it is probably the dippiest sex scene I've ever seen in my life. It cracked me up. Unfortunately, our protags do not get to finish. Womp womp. They are promptly attacked by our alien, but it is that
was the shower.
It is. I am talking about the shower scene. There's this lovely moment where you think people are safe. There's a moment where they give you the impression that people are safe, and yeah, they're about to get it on in that shower, like it's getting hot and heavy, and it is actually a well shot scene. It is very skin on skin, sensual again. And I think the problem for me was that I just started laughing so hard because of how they brought in the alien. Is like they're getting busy, and then all of a sudden there's a tail stroking the gentleman, and he's like, what the fuck? And I was like, that is gold.
Stranger in the tub.
Oh, it was. The poor man is just beautiful. It was well done. It was a very I know they were trying for more horror in that moment, but it came off very comedic, and it was just mwah.
I really enjoy that. I'm a huge Alien fan, but especially the Alien Covenant. I like Prometheus. I liked Alien Covenant. I saw them both in the theater. Alien Covenant has a great prequel book, actually. It's called Alien Covenant Origins, and it talks all about what happens to the crew and everything before they actually take off into space. And there's this crazy cult and everything that's trying to stop them and trying to blow up the ship and everything. I highly recommend Alien Covenant Origins, the novel.
I'm gonna have to look into it because honestly, I've only seen the movies. And I am a big fan of all of the movies. I enjoyed Prometheus. I enjoyed, kind of getting an idea of where our alien friends came from and how we got from, planet Zero to to poor Ripley being, Mama.
Yeah. Right? I love films. I think they're terrific. I'm actually a huge nerd. I got like 30 books. But okay, so let's move on here. So that was the number 3 for Tachina and Mariana Tripletta. Please give us your number 2.
My number 2 is actually a movie I watched recently, and it's a movie that I think I'm gonna talk up, and just everyone's getting this movie for Christmas, by the way. It is from Metal Noir.
Oh yes.
Yes, Joe knows exactly where I'm going with this. So it's directed by David R. Williams, and David R. Williams and Tony Mazziello put their Wonder Twin powers together, and they brought back to us Metal Noir. And Metal Noir, just real quick, it's a story about a local horror novelist that buys a house. The house is haunted by the very dead, ostracized anthropologist and his wife. The basement has its own little secrets. While they attempt to, the spirits of Mr. Madley, who is the anthropologist, and his wife try to resurrect this dark god. Now, the scene that I really enjoyed is so throughout the movie you have kind of this like dirty, nasty synth music, and it's great. It's a wonderful soundtrack. Yep, it's such a great cover too. And then all of a sudden you get this stark contrast with the song New Religion, which is actually written and played by the actor who plays Eric, Scott Moore.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, and so you've got this stark difference in the music already. Now, Laurel, who just bought the house, her boyfriend comes over, Eric. He's kind of got this like late 80s hair metal look to him. He's got like these crop tops. They're really funny.
I love a good crop top.
Yeah, on a man with big like curly hair. Yeah, love it. He's a little skinny for me, but you know. But they start making love while this song New Religion is playing, and almost in the same kind of contrast, the camera pans down to the basement just below Eric and Laurel making the beast with two backs, and down there mirroring their sex scene is Mr. and Mrs. Madley, and theirs is actually a lot more erotic, I feel like. And I think it's not so much the like Laurel and Eric get into it, and you can tell that they're into it.
Good up there.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. And like, but they're still mostly wearing their clothes. When you get down to Mr. and Mrs. Madley, they're just down in their underwear, and they've got all this blood everywhere that they're like smearing on each other and still making out, and it's really like dark and gritty, and like the synth music. And then Eric and Laurel are like the more like Ramones style New Religion song that's playing as well.
I like that song, like right off the bat when I was watching.
I know. I was like, is this the fucking Ramones?
I dug it, and I thought, I mean, I dug the movie, but I really dug that song. I wish I had like the track itself to listen to in the car.
Well, yeah, I couldn't find. Yeah, I went digging for it, and while Scott Moore did put out an album back in the '80s, it does not have that song, and I cannot find that track anywhere. Also, his music is only on vinyl. Like that's all I've been able to find.
That's oh wow. I unfortunately have not seen this movie, but so I'll be looking
Christmas
for
present.
I'll be looking for it around Christmas time.
Yeah.
But it sounds amazing.
This crazy shot on video horror film is through SOV Horror that we interviewed Tony Mazziello, who kind of does those puts those movies out, and he puts them in these. Here, I'll show them to you. Well, I'll show you that one right there. Anyhow,
he's got a bunch of them.
There's a whole bunch of them, and I was blown away by that film. Actually, I'll probably watch that again tonight. But okay, well, I guess that was your number 2.
Number 2. What's your number 2, Joe?
My number 2 is one of my favorite films of all time. This is kind of like shaped me as an individual and as a human being. But the great Lloyd Kaufman's Toxic Avenger. If everybody knows Trauma films, the Toxic Avenger, there's 4 of them. I believe they're working on a part 5 right now, but they're some of the most offensive and brilliant and bloody and nudity and just crazy films out there. And Toxic Avenger is about this skinny nerd Melvin who works at this like a fitness center, and he's a mop boy there, and he's always being picked on by these like beautiful buff people, and the beautiful buff people are constantly making fun of him, and then they go out in the middle of the night and they try to run people over in their car, and it's actually all very funny. And then later on they pull a prank on Melvin where it kind of goes wrong, and he ends up falling out a window and then making this plunge into a vat of toxic waste. And when he comes out, he's this big buff mutant Toxic Avenger guy, and he's wearing a tutu because that's what he was wearing beforehand, because there's this whole setup where he's like supposed to have sex with his gal, and then there ends up being a sheep and stuff. Anyway, you got to go watch it. It's free to watch on YouTube and all this stuff. And but actually legally, because anyway, that doesn't matter. So yeah, Toxic Avenger later on, so he's all ugly and everything, he's like malformed. He ends up meeting this gal Sarah, and Sarah thinks he is one of the most beautiful buff people in the world, even though he's all ugly, because she's blind. And so there's this great sex scene where it's all kind of crazy. They're knocking stuff over because it's offensive and she's blind, and there's like all that jokes because it's back in the 80s. And but she's actually incredibly hot. So Andrew Martin. So I say this because not just because it's like a good sex scene, but it's also because she's one of the hottest. Like, her boobs are amazing. That's what I'm about to say right there. So if you go watch the Toxic Avenger, you'll get everything. You'll get offensive, great humor. You'll get nudity. You'll get mutants, this and that. He rips people's arms off. There's you'll notice actually some of the, anyway, it doesn't matter. If you haven't seen Toxic Avenger, watch Toxic Avenger. It delivers on the 3 B's of horror: blood, boobs, and beasts.
Yay! I dig that. I haven't actually seen that one either, but it sounds pretty insane.
Watch it. It's so good.
Yeah.
I grew up on it. And there's also other like great trauma films like Sergeant Kabuki Man, NYPD. It's all very offensive. So if you come back yelling at me saying you're offended, I give you a warning.
So here's your disclaimer.
Take it for what it is.
Romeo and Juliet, Trauma's War, they're all great. Terror Firmer. I love trauma films. So anyway, that's my number 2. And you think you're going to get our number 1 right now, but you're not, because you're going to have to come back later on today to see the second part of this podcast here. So we just wanted to tease you a little bit. You get to see these guys, so there might be some other stuff that you get to see in this particular podcast, but you're going to have to show up a little later on. And the best way to do that is to hit the subscribe button. And then as soon as that...
hit that bell, too. Hit it.
Hit the bell.
The bell. And make sure that one's like all darked out, not just the outline. Make darked out, yeah.
You'll be able to get, warned or summoned to see this video. You get to see this lovely gentleman here. You get to
Look at those titties.
These titties. You want to come back for these. Mm-hmm. So you'll also be able to come back for these beautiful, very intelligent women and find out what their number 1 sex scenes are going to be. So
yeah, they're coming back for our personalities.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Big, beautiful personalities. Yes. Come on back, folks, and we'll see you a little later this afternoon. All right. Bye.